Hey, good evening. It's Live Life Whimsically. I'm here with Ballora, who doesn't want to ever be on camera. I'm the attention whore. So we decided that last week when we get into like really serious conversations, for lack of a better description, and we let other people jump into the live stream. If they have technical difficulties, or sometimes they just jump in and start talking and we're in the middle of something. So we wanted to do this part first and then come back later for the witch's brew, a witch and her keeper. So that that could just be like basic blabbing and nothing else. So since I'm moving, I'm coming across a bunch of stuff, and I found my my curriculum. Dude, look at this book from the last coven that I belonged to. And I thought that maybe I would just go over the Wicca 101 from this Georgian coven that I was in 100 years ago. And then sort of just kind of, as I talk about stuff, some of this stuff I don't even know. Like I literally pulled this out just now to look at with you guys, and so I don't even know what some of this stuff is. There's crap in the book that I don't remember. This must have been some ritual we did like 100 years ago. And this is 2014, the printout. So that's almost 10 years ago, right? I don't know what that's from, but anyway, so I joined this British traditional coven several years ago, and this is the pre-initiate lessons for Wicca 101. And by the time I had gotten into this coven, I was already practicing for probably close to a decade, if not longer by then. And well, if this is 2014, that's definitely 12 years. But I don't remember when I got into this coven. The thing I wanted to say first and foremost before I forget it, because when I was thinking about doing this today, I thought, what am I going to do? Am I just going to go through the lessons or whatever? I don't know that I really want to go through the lessons. If it's something that amuses you and you guys want to talk about the lessons, we could do that. Like maybe if we wait till like a full moon or something, or a new moon, that might be a time to do it during the time either before or after, whenever the Friday falls, before or after those things. We could actually do that if you wanted to, but I don't know that I really want to actually do this. But the thing that I wanted to just say before I said anything else is, when I joined this coven, these people had been after me for the better part of 4 years, trying to get me to join this coven. And I kept turning them down over and over again. And I should be gentle about this, but I'm not going to be, because I don't talk to these people anymore, and I'm not trying to, and this is, other people might find them lovely and think that what they were doing or what they do, if they still have a coven, is great. And that's awesome. And everybody should do their own thing. I'm not saying anything about that. But for me, it was a valuable lesson, because the 4 years that they tried to get me to join, I kept saying to myself, I don't want to do this. 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 And then I did it. And so because I did it, I decided I needed to stick with it for the entire year and a day, because if you join a coven and you are going to initiate, that's how it works. You stay a year and a day, and usually. I had friends in this coven that were trying to get their third degree and had been in it for 4 years and couldn't get their third degree. And part of that was because the people that were actually teaching it had left their coven in Michigan and then come to Florida and started this coven and got permission by their high priest and high priestess to do this, but they would not elevate them to their high priestess and high priest status, like an actual high priestess and they were sort of like acting high priest and high priestess of this coven. And because they weren't elevated to that status, they could not elevate the other people that were in the coven. So in that first year, I watched two people walk away from the coven, and I was not comfortable with being left in the coven with the other two people that were still there. And I knew that I should have never joined, but I saw it out. I finished the whole year in a day. And then as soon as I got my first degree, I looked at them and said, I would like to be out of this coven. And when you do your first degree, what they have you do is sign your name in a book, prick your finger, and make you put blood next to your name of your own and keep you in the coven that way. And when I said I wanted out, they looked at me and told me they weren't going to release me from the coven. And I went to their superiors because some of them did come to Florida to some festivals that I attended. And I asked for help to be released from this coven. And their superiors basically looked at me and told me that I was screwed and I was stuck in the coven and I couldn't get out unless they decided to let me out. At first, I'm going to say that's garbage that they said that. And it's also garbage that you can't be released out of it. The only thing that precluded me from doing once I walked out of the coven, even when they said that they weren't going to let me out, was I couldn't join another British traditional coven. And I had a zero interest in joining another coven at that moment in time because, dude, I was irritated. I was just finished and didn't really want to be under anybody else. Plus, every time you start a new coven, they make you do Wicca 101 all over again.
Not every time. It depends on the coven. A lot, and what they're trying to teach, because the whole point of the year and the day thing for a coven, to join a coven, is not to teach you the basics. It's to teach you their tradition. So if you already know the basics, the initiation part might not look anything like Wicca 101 or any type of basic shit. It could be that they just go over their traditions and you might have to lead some rituals or show them your work, show them what you've done. And then it's more like a get to know you kind of thing for that year and a day rather than basic classes.
They already knew me.
But it just depends. It just depends on the coven and their tradition. Because, like I said, their tradition, that's what they taught. A year and a day, and they're going to teach you the very basics of their tradition. Whereas a more eclectic coven might not care about that so much as getting to know you and what you know.
Yeah, that was how the first one was with Fallon. We didn't have any of this, but we did do things that were were coven work. We did energy raising and we did healing and we did chakra work, and she had the tarot lady come and we learned about different tarot cards and the difference between tarot cards and oracle cards and things like that. We built drums, and mostly we got together on full and new moons and hung out and then ate dinner and then went home. Yeah. Fallon's stuff was like Girl Scouts for Wicca, because we were always making things and doing things, and she was a really good high priestess. I enjoyed my time in full moon fronts. I really did. I swear to God, dude, if you had a choice. So in the beginning, it's been so long since I looked at the whole book, but like as I flipped through it, there's a note to the student about the pre-initiation lessons that George Patterson actually had these on tape and passed the tapes around to people for a while before it went into this written form. These are transcripts of what he did. And I don't know, I can't remember who he studied under. It may be in here. I don't remember. And then they have in this next page, this is all before you get into the first lesson, by the way. It's the laws and the law. So there has been controversy over the law. Are they original? Are they not? Well, these are the ones we Georgians follow. If someone feels that they are not, they are more than welcome to point it out. And this is so poorly written. And if they can show me otherwise, I will change what is written here. I don't believe that for 5 minutes, but whatever. I was told you can't change the laws. This applies to everyone, regardless of who you are. But keep in mind, the world changes, and we as Georgians must also change to meet the new world. The laws were written many, many years ago. Keep that in mind as you read them. So the high priestess, in the words command and every wish of the high priestess are law. She is the earthly living representation of our gracious goddess. She must be obeyed and respected in all things. She is Our Lady, and above all others, a queen in the highest sense of the word. All covenanters must greet the high priestess with a kiss and say, "Blessed be."
Okay.
The high priest, he is the earthly living representation of the great horned god. And in the magical circle, he commanded the respect due to one who is Magus, a lord counselor and father. He is chosen from the male covenanters of proper rank by the high priestess. And then the laws were made and ordained of old. The laws were made for the Wicca to advise and help their troubles. The Wicca should give due worship to the gods and obey their will, which they ordain, for it was made for the good of the Wicca, and as the worship of the Wicca is good for the gods. For the gods love the brethren of the Wicca. As a man loveth a woman by working with her, so the Wicca should love the gods by working with them.
That didn't age well.
No, it's what it was just like, oh, that was pretty sexist and like homophobic. And it's necessary that the circle, which is, oh, this is so poorly written, which is the of the gods, should be duly cast and purified, that it be a fit place for the gods to enter, and the Wicca shall be properly prepared to enter into the presence of the gods. With love and worship in their hearts, they shall raise power from their bodies to give power to the gods, as has been taught of old. For in this way only may men have communion with the gods, for the gods cannot help men without the help of man. Okay. And the high priestess shall rule her coven as a representative of the goddess, and the high priestess shall support her the high priest shall support her as a representative of the god. When beginning a new coven, it shall be preferred that such be started by both priestess and priest, both the third degree. However, a new coven may be started by either a third degree priestess or a priest, in which case he or she may select a suitable person of lesser degree who is a member of the coven to be acting priestess or priest. For as the god himself kissed her feet in the fivefold salute, laying his power at the feet. Oh my gosh, I'm not reading all of this. There's like 49 laws. Okay. So the first thing they had me do was, I totally forgot about this, was make this stupid dot on a page. And then I was supposed to focus my attention on that dot. Don't remember why. And then, so these are the different lessons that I did over the year and the day. Lesson 1 was an introduction and consecration, grounding, centering, shielding. And then we had these exercises that we were supposed to do: ground and centering, unbrainwashing, concentration, bowl of water exercise, and shielding. Bowl of water was just scrying. Lesson 2 was Sabbath information, which is tools, the circle, basic craft etiquette, discretion, essay circle, etiquette, coven, etiquette regarding absences. And then exercise 1 from lesson 1. And then we had to read the book. Oh my friggin' God. Chariots of the Gods.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me?
Like, dude, that book is older than me. Well, it's not older than me, but my dad brought it home like in the 70s. And he was so enamored with Chariots of the Gods.
Okay.
He loved it. And then imagination exercises. Lesson 3, willpower, cakes and wine, energy, hand fasting, book of shadows, the circle directions, casting the circle, cakes and wine, releasing the circle. Practice casting, dissolving the circle, do meditation exercises, copy and practice the elemental associations, copy and practice the invoking and banishing pentagrams, visualize energy necklace, list of virtues and faults, read Practical Candle Burning Rituals by Raymond Buckland. So the one thing that I'm going to say about this particular lesson was the whole time that I was involved in Wicca and I first started going to festivals, that was the thing that torqued me at FPG was opening ritual. They didn't close the circle after they did the ritual. They just said, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
And everybody just kind of ran out of circle and went about their business. And I was like, yo, are we missing a part? Like what happened? So I was very happy when I got to this lesson and realized what we were going to do. And they felt the same way. So we did agree on that. That's good. Lesson 4, candle burning ritual intent and pendulums, coven and craft tools, robes, blades, FMA, Kerfin, Kerfin, sword, bowling, cords, wand, and staff, ritual classifications by element, gender, individual, and coven perception extension exercises. By gender?
Yeah. A lot of British traditional witchcraft, especially around, a decade and a half to 2 decades ago, was very gendered. And some of that has carried over into today in some, not all, of the Dianic traditions where, now you got people being turfs. And
what's a turf?
It's a woman that thinks that transgender women aren't real.
Oh, that's like, what's that lady's name? Starhawk.
I'm not going to name names, and I don't keep up with enough pagan people to know. I don't know about Starhawk.
Wasn't it her?
I don't think it was her.
Or was it Z Budapest? I'm naming names. I don't give a fuck. What are they going to do? Come beat me with their canes? They're like 20 years older than me.
No, but
it's true.
J.K. Rowling.
Is she a witch?
No, okay. She's an author.
Yeah, I know she's an author.
She's a huge turf.
I know. People are like talking about her all over Facebook right now.
But it's a problem within the pagan community, especially in some, not all of the Dianic traditions.
Yeah, you have to be a natural born woman and stuff to be.
And, it's, I see gatekeeping a lot.
It's been like that the whole time.
Yes, but there's a lot of people that don't recognize it or embrace it. And it's one of the reasons that I have kind of stepped far back from any public pagan.
And you hate people.
Stuff. Well, yeah, that too. But, it's just very disheartening that you see a lot of other religions that are very, oppressive. And then, most people that find paganism, the first thing that they feel is that feeling of the oppression lifting.
Yeah, but it's not like that.
And then they find out that, there is still a lot of gatekeeping and oppression going on. It's just kind of couched in toxic positivity.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because there are a lot of very good people out there too that really try hard to get people to understand their freedom. And
a lot of white supremacists and paganism too, just so you know.
In some traditions, yes.
Yeah. You got to be very careful about the whole heathen thing. You do, because you don't know. And you might not know till you're already in there. And that's another reason why you should ask a lot of questions when you're talking about getting into anything, because there are some traditions that the way you get into a coven is through sex. You have to have sex with either the high priest or the high priestess. It's not always that way, but it does happen sometimes. And then there are some that do the sexual rite symbolically, where you don't have to do that.
It's not as common anymore,
No,
but
but
it does exist. And
it was in this coven originally.
Yeah.
They believed that. And that was really the first 3 years that they were trying to get me in it. I was like, no.
Yeah. So here's the thing with that. Do your research.
Yeah.
Always do your research and know what you're getting into. So if you have an interest in Wicca, understand that it is a new religion. It's not ancient. There's
50s, the 1950s.
If somebody tries to tell you that their lineage goes back generations and stuff, just be wary of that.
I totally forgot about that.
Just be wary of people that say that they can, trace their lineage back to the witch burnings of the 1600s.
Oh, Lord God.
Because that didn't really exist.
No.
And it doesn't really resemble any form of the Wiccan religion today.
No.
So, do your research. And when I say do your research, I don't mean just look them up online. I mean, read a lot of material about the history of what you're getting into, and then get references from actual real people that are both currently in the coven and not any longer in the coven, if possible. Because a good coven won't mind you talking to all of its members.
No, not even the ones that left.
Yes.
They won't care.
Yes. Because people do leave covens for all kinds of reasons.
I left the one in Clearwater that I was in because I had a small child at the time.
Yeah.
And she wanted everything done on the exact day.
And there should never be any problem with that. If somebody, is in a coven and they find that their life circumstances are changing, either, just because of jobs, children's spouses, moving, a change in schedule, even just a change in interest, it should be an amicable parting. And, if it's not, then you should, be able to have a discussion in an adult manner with the members that are currently in that coven as to why it wasn't amicable.
Yes.
And you should be able to, have a lot of transparency there. Yeah. So if you're interested in joining a coven and you find one, that's my best advice to you. Know what you're getting into, like Michelle is, saying. Do your research on that particular tradition to know what it's all about.
Yeah.
And know the people in that particular coven as well.
I met some really cool Georgians. I'm just going to say that were part of my tradition that didn't live by us. Mm-hmm. They lived further south. I still talk to them occasionally. But I left the first coven, which was just an eclectic coven, because my kid was little and we had to be up to go to school in the morning time. And my high priestess wanted us to meet on the days of the moons and the actual holidays that we had. And it was hard because she lived almost an hour away from me. And when we would get done, sometimes it'd be like 11 o'clock at night. And then I had to get Stephen up at 6 to get him to school the next day. And when you come home from really good ritual,
you're tired.
Well, but you're not sleeping either.
Yeah.
You're tired and you're friggin' charged up. And
you shouldn't be.
Well, man. Well, no. See, that was one thing she didn't teach me, and I thought it was her coffee. And I said, I'll never drink coffee that she makes ever again, my high priestess. But anyway, that's running off a tangent. But so we were talking about the coven and crap, the tools, robes, blades, athemi, that whatever that thing was, sword, bowling, cords, wands. All of that stuff that was cool in this coven because they made me make all that stuff. I mean, obviously they didn't make knives and shit like that, but I made my own robe. And I didn't know how to sew for crap. And I was freaking out because I had to make this robe. I'm like, what am I going to do? And Mary goes, go buy have them measure you for a robe, like show them a pattern and say, I need to make this robe. And then buy the thing. And then she said, lay it out on the ground and then lay down and have somebody trace your body and then just cut it out and put a hole in the top and throw it over the top of you like a poncho and then put your cord that you make around you and there's your robe. You don't even have to sew it. I was like, brilliant. That was brilliant. And then I had to make the cord. Oh my gosh, Michelle. Somewhere that cord, I don't know if I think I might have burned the cord, but I bought the wrong size length. I went yards of rope and it was like as long as my as my family room.
When they were spooling that out, why didn't you say, well, wait,
no,
that's
I didn't know. I didn't know. I said, well, this is what it says. This is what I'm supposed to have. And she was going, what are you going to do with it? I said, I'm going to wrap it around me. She goes, how many times? But I did have to make it myself. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I burned it. It's gone. Then the next one, we did pendulum exercises in that last one, tarot, nature exercises, gathering the rituals, the tools. Lesson 5 was on death and connection to trees. On death and connection to trees. I don't know how this didn't just make me laugh when I was looking at it, because it's certainly funny to me now. And then the supplemental material was magic, ethics, and personal responsibility. Basic protections, psychic self-defense, perfect paranoia, on psychic attack, colors and symbolism, astrological colors and planetary colors, spells, amulets, and talismans, magical alphabets, elements of spell casting, preparation, links, timing, wording to the spell examples, love, protection, money, charms, amulets, talismans, and consecration ritual. That's what that lesson was.
Now, okay, so you just listed off a whole
many
of things, and you said that that's lesson 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you telling me they went over all of that shit with you in like one night?
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. They split us up. So the people that were above me were with one of them, and then I was with one of them, and I actually didn't have to read Chariots of the Gods. For God's sake, they had the video on VHS, and I had to watch that with whoever I was watching it with. I said, I remember all of this from 1975. Do I still have to watch this horrible film? Yes, I did. So yeah, we went, and honestly, I think probably it's been so long, but we probably glossed over a lot of this in lesson 5.
See, okay. Here's the thing, though. The whole point of joining a traditional coven like that is to learn the traditions. And how are you supposed to learn all that in one night?
Well, you were supposed to study for the month before you came back.
Even one of those things.
That is a lot. It is a lot.
Like,
hug a tree exercise.
Some of the exercises you might be able to do and get something out of it if you do it just once. But you're not going to learn a lot of that stuff in a month. You don't become an expert of those kinds of things overnight. It's not just, I did this, now the next thing.
Yeah, I'm so smart now. Practicing magical alphabets, create a spell, amulet, talisman for the following situations: new love, heterosexual, and same-sex. News reporter, teacher, you're supposed to find a new job. News reporter, teacher, grave digger, airline pilot, priestess, priest, construction worker. What the fuck, dude? Lesson 6 on metals in circle, directions, casting the circle, goddess statues for the altar, on music in the circle. Supplementary material, types of rituals, Esbot, Sabbats, initiations, rites of passage, others, elements of ritual, single celebrant full moon with commentary, ritual gestures, postures and positions, hand gestures, ritual positions. And the assignments were practice ritual gestures, postures and positions, practice invoking, banishing elemental pentagrams, read a book of pagan rituals, grandmother of time, grandmother moon, and the element of beginning ritual construction. I don't think I read all of those books. I don't think I read any of those books. The one thing that they did do was when they did their
Grandmother of Time, I think, is in Budapest.
probably is. We did the pentacles, and they were in different directions. So one was this way, one was this way. It was just this whole different way when for each direction that you went in, and I never could get it right. I tried, but it just wouldn't stick in my brain.
Yeah.
Lesson 7: the tree, circle, dimensions, pentagrams, wand, and sword directions. Supplemental material: the wheel of the year, Sabbat types, greater, lesser Sabbath information, Samhain, Yule, Candlemas, Ostara, Beltane, Midsummer, Lammas, Mavan, other festivals, new moon, full moon, festivals of lights, Lupercanal. I swear to God, that reminds me of whenever anybody says Lupercanal, it makes me think of people that have like hemorrhoids and they put that stuff on their butt. It's whatever it sounds like to me every time I hear it. Sun signs and degrees of the Sabbath. Assignments, Sabbath readings, 8 Sabbats for witches, wheel of the year, ancient ways, research one Sabbath, general reading, the tree, pagan way rituals, what witches do, mastering witchcraft, ABCs of witchcraft. And then lesson 8 was helpful things, hypnosis and self-hypnosis. Supplemental, that human body and its counterparts, auras, aura colors, aura reading, technique, chakras, energy flows, beginning trance work, basic techniques, cautions, trance introduction, creating a place of power, emerging from trance, guided meditations, the meadow and the well, magical dance. And the assignments were Buckland's comp book, the spiral.
Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft.
Big Uncle Bucky's Big Blue?
Yeah.
Okay. The spiral dance, the wheel of Lilith. Oh God, Uncle Bucky's Big Blue. Lord God. That was super fun. That was the one that Dragon taught out of.
Yeah.
That was her curriculum. Lesson 9, using a pendulum. Herbalism, supplemental. Herbalism, basic definitions, forms of herbal remedies, simples, substitutions, equipment, getting herbs, gathering and storage, process. I swear I don't remember any of this. Simple meditation, herbal, common ailments, and herbal cures, magical uses. Oh Lord. Incense, formulas, catalysts, condensers, oils, oil formulas, ointments, inks, baths, potions, magical use of herbs. And then the reading was Encyclopedia of Magical Herbalism, Herbs and Things, Mastering Herbalism, Master Book of Herbalism, and Keep a Shelf of Herbs for Cooking, Healing, Magical Use, Basic Incenses, and Personal Incense Formulas. Dude, just like we had to make incense. We had to bring stuff to make incense.
Mm-hmm.
And then lesson 10, psychometry. And then the supplementary material was divination methods and methodology, symbolism, symbols for interpretation, and meaningful history of divination methods, traditional forms, list of traditions, forms, scrying, tarot, basic meanings, major arcana, minor arcana, reading the cards, sample layouts, I Ching, runestones, clairvoyance, and precognitive applications. My mother used to do I Ching. Readings, the tarot revealed, the I Ching illustrated, I Ching, the runes and runic workbook, and practice at least one form of divination before you come back the next month. Lesson 11, the mind hypnosis, unbrainwashing yourself. supplementary material, the Jungian view of deity. Oh my gosh. Craft view of deity worship in the craft invocation and evocation, the magical self names, assignments, cave of the ancients meditation, reading man and his symbols, stranger in a strange land, self naming, good, bad qualities list update. I don't know what that means. So, Carl Jung, I ain't a fan, but you might be, and it's okay. Everybody to each his own. Lesson 12. We were finally getting close to the end. Thank God, I couldn't wait for this part. Consecration about the magical tools, supplemental material for lesson 12. The charge of the goddess, the charge of the god, defining the charge of the goddess, defining the charge of the god. It's so redundant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Assignments, readings, defining the charge of the goddess, defining the charge of the god. Practice writing and reading a simple ritual, memorizing circle casting and dismissing dismissals, doing pentagrams. That was for the each direction, which I never got. And the last one, being a high priest or high priestess, performance suggestions, supplemental initiation rites and privileges, covens versus solitaries, coven hierarchy. And your preparation for the first degree, you go to the vigil instructions. You have a 3-day purification that was like no sugar, no alcohol, no weed. I was supposed to stay sober for 3 days. It was so fucking hard then because I was drinking wine like every day back then.
Mm-hmm.
I was not disciplined at all. I did it.
Mm-hmm.
On the day of the initiation, you need to take a ritual bath. They tell you what you're supposed to bring, and you get your last minute instructions, and then they tie you up and walk you in naked. Do your thing. I almost fell asleep that night. Waiting for it to be my turn to go out. They had me on the bed in the back of the house, and I was like out sleeping. Couldn't wait to open up my box of wine.
So
this is crazy.
I mean, there's some lessons in there
that are good.
that are, it's very kind of generic and like touches on a lot of different things but doesn't really focus on any one thing, which is okay for a first year.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would be interested to, see how many people really got a lot out of that in their first year versus a more focused study on any of it,
I don't know. I think by about lesson 6, what did I do?
Yeah.
Why am I here?
It's, it's like anything else. You're going to get out of it what you want. So it's not going to resonate with everybody. And for some people, it's going to resonate really well. And for those people that, go through this and really make it their own, I'm sure they could probably get a lot out of it.
I don't think you were encouraged to make this your own.
No. Yeah.
I really don't. It was just funny. I remember just, having to be, if I got there too early.
Let me ask you about this. Were you bored a lot?
I was bored all the time.
Yeah.
And I was sort of disgusted a couple of times too by some of the things I saw, and the behavior and just the complete ignorance of what they were trying to teach me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a few times looking over at one or the other of my coven sisters who I still remain close to, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus, and just seeing the look on their faces when certain things were said or done. and us looking at each other like, what is happening, and just I don't know. One time, and this is really crappy of me to admit to, but I did do it. I literally disagreed with him as he was teaching a class, just because, not because I disagreed for real, but I disagreed just to see if I could switch him over to my side, and I did. Totally yanked him right to my way of thinking when I totally agreed with what he said, but
You were bored.
I was so bored.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
And I thought, if you're the high priest or high priestess, okay, you shouldn't be so stiff-necked that you can't, be swayed to a different position if you actually agree with that position. But he didn't agree with me. I don't think anybody in the coven agreed with me. But I literally yanked him to my position.
See, okay. This might be getting a little deeper than maybe we intended for this conversation to go.
It was supposed to be a brief overview.
Yeah. But there's several different types of covens. Okay. One of which is probably the most prevalent, which is the teaching coven.
Yeah, and that's what I was just thinking of.
And that is what most people think of when they think of joining a coven. It's, your initiation into the mysteries of that coven, whatever those mysteries may be.
Yeah.
It's your learning about what those people practice. Okay, so that requires leaders, whoever they may be good teachers. And to really know the material and know what they're teaching, and not just know it, but be able to teach it well, to pass it on, because the whole point of that type of coven is so that the people within the coven learn it backwards and forwards and upside down, and then they can pass that on
to
the next.
Continue the tradition.
Yes. So, but that's just one type of coven, the teaching coven or the traditional, coven. There's also, covens that just get together because they want to join their magic together and believe that, however many people joining their power is more effective than one.
Yeah.
And there's other covens that get together because they, want the, to worship deity together. It's almost like church.
Yeah, well, that was how Fallon's was.
Yeah. And so
on top of, we did do magic too.
Yeah. So but that's a good point, because a lot of those, not a lot, but some of those types of covens don't do magic at all. They are there, they get together to do the sabbats and the esbats, and they're there to worship. They're there to feel a communion with each other and deity.
Yeah.
And magic is not a part of that.
Right. Well, there were nights that wasn't the thing too.
Mm-hmm. So the reason I'm saying all this is because if somebody's out there listening to this right now and is thinking of joining a coven, you should also, in addition to doing your research, you should also personally know what type of coven you're looking for, and that there is more than just one type. And by that I don't mean just more than one tradition. I mean more than just going into it and being like, okay, I'm going to learn all your tradition and become a teacher myself one day.
Because that's not might not be your end goal. And also, let me just say this to you too: you don't need a coven to learn any of this stuff. Especially now, there is so much stuff online. And you can do all of it. You can do your own research. And honestly, if even if you really do want to join a coven, I highly suggest that you do what Belora just said about trying to define the type of coven that you actually want to be in, and then do research on that type of coven you want to be in, and then of course ask all those really serious questions about what is entry, what is not. And also, you don't have to be limited if your coven allows this, and that probably should be another question you ask, to just one coven. You can have a coven that you go to that is just for your worship, and then you can have a working coven that actually that's all they get together for is magic. But it's important that you ask questions of both of those covens. Excuse me, of how do they feel about you being in two different places at one time? Because I can tell you that in the one that I just read you from, they would not have allowed me to be in any other coven but theirs. And for me personally, that's a red flag. If they're telling me I can't do this or I can't do that, then I really don't want to be a part of anything like that. And honestly, I don't see myself ever joining another coven again. I just don't.
Yeah. I mean, also along that same line, let's say you do that. You figure out what type of coven you want to join, and say, you want to join a coven that just gets together to, on the full moons and holidays, we get together and do circle to celebrate deity together.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the type of coven I want to join. And then you do your research and you find out about this coven that you found and decide, yeah, this sounds like it's a pretty cool idea. I like the people. And you join. And you go. And maybe a few months go by or a year or whatever. You should leave every coven gathering and evaluate yourself and what happened. Are you leaving those circles happy and empowered? Or are you leaving those circles with something missing or uncomfortable or irritated or whatever? If you're not feeling empowered and happy and like you really want to go to the next one and are glad that you went to this one, you should not in any way be afraid or intimidated by anyone to say, okay, this isn't for me.
No. And it's, and understand too that if you join something, you it's a commitment.
Yeah.
Every other Saturday I had to go.
Yeah, see, that's the big difference between, like gatherings, because a lot of covens do have open stuff where, you're not obligated.
Fallon did those.
You're just, you're going to celebrate, and you might see those people a few times a year.
Yeah, you might go for holidays, you might go for one full moon every once in a while or whatever.
And that's it. And you're not really part of a coven, but you're part of that group. But a coven, really joining a coven, that is a commitment.
That's a commitment. When I was in Fallon's coven, I think I was so new to Wicca and paganism in general, like literally got that book to write a silver broomstick. And I am not going to throw shade at Silver Raven Wolf, man.
I don't find anything. I mean,
it
is what it is. It has its place.
It does have its place. The only thing that I will say about that book was it was for beginners, but it wasn't beginner friendly enough. It wasn't until I found Scott Cunningham's The Guide to a Solitary Practitioner that I understood some of the things that were in Silver Raven Wolf's book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the only bad thing I'm going to say about it. But I was so new that when I came home from, because I got the book and read it cover to cover, at Fantasy Fest in Key West while I was drunk as fuck. I was reading this book while I was taking it into bars with us while we were out partying and reading. And I finished it in 3 days down in the Keys. And I thought, this is cool. I really want to check this out. And we were trying to find somebody that could marry us that way, even though we didn't know what we were doing. And he actually found her online because she was doing weddings for other not just witches at that time. She was doing weddings because, again, she was like a Girl Scout leader, and the girl could just Lafayette only lady. And so she said, well, I want you to come. I want you to come down and meet. When she said she would do the wedding, she said, I want you guys to come down. I want to meet you, and I want you to meet my circle. And so Leon thought he might enjoy it too. So we went, and I think we went to 2 or 3, and he finally said, no, I got nothing for this. He said, but I know you like it, so you keep going. And all of a sudden, I was just in the coven. And because it wasn't like this other one, there wasn't some big hoopla that had to happen. I didn't get naked, and nobody tied me up and led me into the circle.
Yeah, Fallon had like more of an eclectic.
She did, and she said that was the word she used to describe the coven. And then she said, "You're going to be my little handmaiden, and you're going to just do what I tell you to do, and not in a bad way."
Right.
So my job was to come a couple hours early. So I mean, imagine when I had this little kid. He was 7 years old, 8 years old at the time, and I had to be there. Thank goodness Leon worked out of the house, but I was at her house on the nights of the full, the new moons, and the holidays at like 5 o'clock at night. And then I would help her clean. I would be the sous chef and cut up stuff. And then as people came in, I told them where to put stuff. And then there was another lady that was like her assistant in the circle. I don't remember what she freaking called that woman. She might have been a handmaiden too. I don't remember. But she was the one that took all the stuff out to the altar outside and set up the altar for whatever it was we were going to do that night, whether it was a full moon or whatever we were going to do. She did that. Mm-hmm. And then she had her husband, Randy, was the high priest. And then we had like drummers and stuff. She had when we first started going down there, it was a huge amount of people in that little tiny house in Clearwater. And we were in that backyard drumming. And you'd go into circle at 8 o'clock at night, and then all of a sudden it'd be finished, and it felt like it happened in 5 minutes. And you looked, and it was freaking 11:30 at night. Mm-hmm. Like we were in the circle all this time, And then I remember coming back home from that a couple of times. My mom might have come over while Steve was little, and Leon might have been busy or whatever. But my mom was like really intrigued by,
what are you doing?
What are you doing down there in Clearwater? And she said, I want to go. And I said, you want to go to a witch circle? And my dad was like, you can eat some chicken feet. And so I was like, well, whatever, Dad. Yeah, we need chicken feet. So I asked Fallon, my mom's nosy, man. She wants to come. Oh, yeah, bring her down. It's fine. She can come. And then my mom knew there was food. So the tourist was like, I'm going. I don't care what's happening. We're eating. I'm going. So I took my mom down there, and I said, you don't have to get in the circle or anything if you don't want to. This bitch was a trooper. Went right out there, held hands, turned and faced the quarters, did all of the shit everybody was doing, and sat through the whole thing. And then we had dinner, and I took her back home, and she said, it's not so bad, right? It's not scary. And I said, no. Yeah. She goes, Fallon's really nice. And I said, yes. Mm-hmm. And then we got home, and when every once in a while, my father would start the whole chicken feet thing or sacrificing something. She'd go, oh, shut the fuck up, Gus. It ain't even like that. You should go down there sometime and watch what's happening. He was like, whoa, I don't know if I want to go down a bunch of witches. He would have had a good time. Yeah. He really would have had a good time.
Yeah, and he was much more likely to be sacrificing a goat in his backyard anyway.
Oh, yeah. Put it on a spit and then have dinner later. Put a fucking lamb head in the oven and call it a day.
Yeah. So I noticed something here in this little conversation that we're having. You speak much more fondly of that first coven than you do of the one that you joined later.
Loved that coven.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah. So I just want to point out that just because you think you might want a certain coven for knowledge or whatever, it might not be anything like what you think it's going to be.
And I only left it because of the distance.
Yeah.
There was no other reason for it. I just looked at her and said, I'm so tired. And especially after it was a couple of years that I was there, Stephen was like 11, I think, by the time I quit. And I was tired. He had things to do. And, I had to get up with him and make sure, because the little bitch wouldn't get out of bed. Even and 75 alarms. It's still the same way. Got 75 alarms, but he gets up for that because he gets paid by the hour now. So, but when he was little, it was just too much. And it was so hard to walk away from that. And then she said, well, you should start something.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest is fucking history.
Yeah.
You should start something. And it should be a spinoff of my coven. And you should call it the Full Moon Friends too. And Leanne looked at me and he goes, don't do that. don't call it that. Call it something else.
Yeah.
And so that's how Pasco Pagans, because
Yeah.
I wanted it to be
The group that you didn't really create.
Yeah, no, I stole that from some other bitch.
That's hilarious.
That and that time when I gave them shit about, somebody said, I know the group owner in my group, telling me they know the group owner. I'm like, the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Christina Fatalita said,
Whatever.
what the fuck ever. Christina Fatalita says a lot of shit. It's not her group. I know the person who started it. Really? Shut the fuck up.
So I didn't really. I had a couple small covens I was involved in. Well, both before I came to Florida, I had a couple small covens.
That one we had with Kelly was another really good coven, and I missed that.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was a really good coven, because it really wasn't. It was just, let's get together, and then it just turned into that.
Yeah. So I took those experiences, though, and even when I was in those covens, I knew that I was absorbing. I was learning the process there because I wanted to do my own thing. I almost immediately from the get-go, when I learned what paganism was, and I was young, I was like late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't want to be told I can and can't do things, because that's not how my magic works. I wanted to be able, I didn't want anybody telling me you can't do this or you can't do that, if that what it was that they were telling me worked for me.
Yeah.
And I also didn't really agree with the ethics of a lot of groups. And Wicca in particular just wasn't my thing. I knew right away that although it was a neat concept, it felt very much like they were just taking the concept of the one Christian God and splitting it into man and woman. And I didn't like that.
Well, and some of them just totally ignore the God, and it's just the goddess.
Yeah.
So you actually flip Jesus for whatever, insert her name there.
Yeah.
I didn't like that either.
And I even at that time, even way back then, I was already very enamored of a certain pantheon, and wasn't, I was like, the pantheon that I happened to really like, a lot of Wiccans were like, oh no,
So I spit that shit all over the place.
So I knew, pretty much right away, I was going to do my own thing.
So that was never my intention. I never wanted to be the high priestess.
I didn't want to be a high priestess. And it took me a while to get comfortable with people calling me that. Because I always thought of myself as just, hey, let's get together and do this thing together.
I didn't want to say, hey, let's get together and do this thing together. I didn't want to be the high priestess. I didn't want to be the facilitator. I didn't mind people using my house, but I never wanted to be the fucking big cheese in the room. I just couldn't find anybody. That was the problem.
Yeah.
Because everything was friggin' oath bound and secret. Yeah. And honestly, to me, that was divine intervention protecting my dumb ass from even more stupid people in this county.
Yeah.
Because that would have been, I mean, I would have had to gone into Moon Lake to be in the coven that anybody knew about here in town.
Well, and that was another thing too. It was like, okay, if I was going to join a coven, I did do my research and I looked at what they were practicing and went, I don't know that this is really right for me.
Well, you were also lucky enough to have the internet to be able to do that shit with, and we didn't have that.
Barely. I mean, I started with books in bookstores.
Yeah.
Because it was like, well, it would have been 88.
Oh, shit, okay.
So, later on, a few years later, I don't remember when I had my first computer, but I know it wasn't like my home computer. I think I had access to computers at school, like towards the, 89, 90. But, I came from a little hick town too. So I know I didn't have a home computer.
You didn't find shit in the libraries, at least not that I saw or remembered.
No, there was a few books at the library that weren't really paganism geared, but they were world religion type books that I read when I was really young.
I don't think I even saw that.
But pagan books, I had to go down to Detroit and go to the bookstores.
I didn't even know there was such a thing. Like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I knew that there was supernatural stuff, because my mother was all into,
right.
And then there was folk magic around me all the time.
Yeah, me
but
too.
No one ever really I didn't consider that like witchcraft or anything,
right?
Because it was little Greek ladies.
It was just what we did.
Yeah, that were coming over and doing things around the house to get rid of the mati. Whoa, the mati's on you, which was the evil eye. And they had to come to get the mati off of you. Like when you see my big fat Greek wedding and she's walking down the aisle and they're all going, they'll take the mati off of her. In case anybody's like wishing any bad shit on you. Or they had these things called, what were they called? I don't know, they made these little like pillow things. They were small. And then they had little tiny, like the kind of beads you used to string when you were a kid to make a necklace. Mm-hmm. They had those all over, and they were made in like different colors and things like that. And I would ask my mom, what's inside? Oh, part of Jesus's cross. I'm like, how many pieces of Jesus's cross do these people have? And then they would pin them on your clothes and stuff so nobody could put any evil on you and shit. Yeah. So that shit was around me forever. They did that stuff, Yeah. And but didn't call it witchcraft or magic or anything like that. My dad said that there was one witch lady that came to the house when he was really, really sick when he was little, that no one could make him better, no doctors, no nothing. And this lady came to the house and made him like put his feet in some kind of fucking onion and garlic thing, tied it up around his feet, and made him poured some kind of oil and crap all over him and stuff. And
he's like, they're gonna cook me, they're basting me, they're seasoning me with onions,
just like the lamb. But evidently he got better, and I always wondered, like, how long had he been sick, and was it just going to get better anyway before the lady came? And
he was like, I better tell these people I'm better, or they do something else.
And then my grandfather used to do that shit. When I would get sick, he'd come to my house and do stuff, because I used to get ear infections all the time. Never mind that everybody in the fucking house smoked cigarettes, and that was probably why it was happening.
Yeah.
And he would come over and he would bring this little tiny friggin' bottle of, he called it sweet oil, and he'd put it on the stove in a pot until it got warm, and they have to hold me down because I was convinced anything you poured in my ears was going to make me go deaf.
Yeah.
So they pour that shit in there and then stick cotton in there. And then eventually that would, I don't know, you probably just got better too. And plus the fact they were covering up my ear holes with cotton so the fucking smoke couldn't go in there anymore. Even the doctor, I can remember being like, because I was sick all the time. I had pneumonia and all kinds of shit. And I can remember being in like the bed in the hospital and the doctor had a cigarette in his mouth while he's like examining me and shit.
Oh my God.
Seriously, everybody smoked at the hospital.
Oh my God.
Like,
you know what sweet oil is?
mm-mm.
It's almond oil.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
They poured that shit right down my ears.
Sometimes it's olive oil.
Yeah. I don't know. He put that in my ears all the time. And then there was the, if you got a sty.
Yeah.
He had this little kit. It was like a box. And you come over to the house and he had a piece of like velvet he would lay out on the table. And then he had like a 24 karat gold ring in there. He'd take that out and rub that bitch until it got hot on that velvet and then put the cross all over the fucking thing.
Oh my God. All right.
To get rid of your sty. And then my grandmother did some kind of like if you hurt something or something was really sick and she would pray over you like this.
Whenever we were sick, my grandma would just liquor us up.
My dad's dad did put like bourbon and honey and cherry juice.
Yeah.
And then heat that all up in a mug and say, drink that.
Yeah.
And it'd be like a mug that size and you're 6. And it'd be like this much fucking bourbon in there. They were just knocking your ass out.
You just pass out after a while.
Yeah,
and you're like,
and you're happy.
Yeah. I don't feel nothing anymore, Grandma.
My dad was probably like, how do you make that kid go to sleep like that?
Yeah.
Ancient Greek recipe.
All right.
All right, I'm going to shut this down and then come back later for the drinking, maybe. Kind of want to watch True Blood. Don't know if I want to come back. We'll see. Peace.